Well, welcome back to Pushing the Limits today. And I have an amazing, lovely guest. And we've actually got a bit of a backstory. We already recorded this interview and then I went and lost it all on my computer somehow. Don't ask me how. So, Frances Anderson, thank you very much for joining me again to share your very embarrassing situation when you go and delete an entire interview. So I know you probably want to throttle me, but today we're going to be talking a little bit about your story and this amazing invention, I want to call it an invention, that you've made. Now, Frances is the founder of the Patney Pillow or Sleep Positioner. And this is going to be an episode all about optimizing your sleep and why snoring is bad for you and all of that sort of good stuff. So welcome to the show, Frances, again. So I think we'll start with a little bit of a backstory. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and then why you got into this making this invention?
Well, I'm the snorer. It's as simple as that. And I had tried all sorts of things, including surgery. And that lasted about as long as it took the swelling to go down. So that wasn't effective. And I tried most things and they just didn't solve the problem. And it got to the stage where I was beginning to get sleep apnea, so stopping breathing. And my husband one morning said to me, you frightened the living daylights out of me last night. You stopped breathing. You got to do something about this. And so I sort of walked away and thought, I don't know, what am I going to do? I've tried everything. And so I set about trying to find a solution for my snoring. And that took a little bit of time. I have to say, it's not a great thing to try and invent something you sleep on. Because, 2:00 in the morning, you're busy trying to design this thing.
Why is this not working?
How do you stop snoring, So eventually I did. And then I felt that I'd solved my problem and carried on working like everybody else in my normal job. And then a couple of friends said, can I have one? And at that stage, I thought I was the only female that snored.
Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit for a second, because a lot of people have issues with snoring, and for men it's sort of acceptable, it's like one of those things. Men sort of, I snore, so who cares? For women, it's a little bit more embarrassing. And like, you thought you were the only woman who snored, and you're a tiny lady, very slim. And you said you've struggled with snoring even in your young years, like in your teenage years.
Yes.
How did that make you feel?
Well, I first knew that I snored at 13 when I went to boarding school. And of course, you're in dormitories and got horribly ostracized and found it incredibly embarrassing, but also incredibly stressful because I didn't know how to solve it.
No.
And, it's fine for people to say stop snoring, but how? So I weathered the boarding school years, and but still the snoring was a problem. But as I got older, it became a more of a problem. And but I inherited it from my mother, so it's probably not quite right that I thought I was the only female that snored. My mother did, and she was a chronic snorer. And with the knowledge we have now, obviously she had sleep apnea, really bad sleep apnea.
Yeah.
And my poor old mum, she died of dementia.
Yeah.
And they are now looking at links between dementia and
absolutely.
Because of course, with dementia, with chronic snoring or sleep apnea, you're starving your brain of oxygen.
Yep.
People can stop breathing as much as 100 times an hour. So sleep apnea is a serious.
It's huge. And we've done I've got a backstory with us too, with my mum having sleep apnea after her stroke. And I think she probably had it before it even. And doing a sleep assessment and realizing that her SpO2 levels were down at around 70% at their worst time in the night, and that she was stopping breathing hundreds of times a night and actually knocking off her brain cells. at a point where, you know, after the aneurysm, when she didn't have a heck of a lot left. And so this came on my radar then, and getting a sleep apnea assessment and realizing that she was in deep trouble and having to have a CPAP machine. And this is a problem that is, you know, not really well understood. People sort of think snoring's just annoying. It's not just annoying, it's disrupting the sleep of the partner, obviously in the bed, which has its own health consequences for that person as well, or the other people in the dormitory in your case. But it is also really damaging your health, and there is a huge correlation now between Alzheimer's and dementia and neurodegenerative diseases and sleep apnea. And so this is, you know, hence doing this podcast, because it is a very important health topic. Snoring's not just an unpleasant thing, and it's not just overweight old men that snore, which is the common sort of perception.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of experts on the show, breathing experts, James Nestor and Patrick McEwen, who've both best-selling authors of breathing books, Breathe and The Oxygen Advantage. And they talk about, you know, just how important the breathing is to the whole health, and you know, nasal breathing, and they talk of how important that piece of the puzzle is. And you know, they go so far as to tape their mouth shut at night, which I do actually, in order to help with the nasal breathing, which is optimizing my breathing. I don't have sleep apnea, I don't snore, but that helps optimize, if you like. So you managed, though, without having a CPAP machine, to get on top of your snoring. And I think a lot of people would be interested in this, because having a CPAP machine is brilliant, and thank goodness for them, as I don't think my mum would be here now. But they're also very intrusive. A lot of people just won't comply with them. It's, you know, you've got this big mask over your face, and it's a very important machine. And the invention that you've made, the sleep positioner that you've made, doesn't replace CPAP. That CPAP has its place. We need those, but for certain people, this can help. So you managed to what is this? What is a sleep positioner? What is this special pillow that we're talking about?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's it took me 4 years to actually bring it to fruition.
Wow.
And while I, you know, solved my own snoring within a few months, I had only just made it out of retail materials.
Yeah.
So to commercialize it, I needed to have a molded product. And so that took even more time to be able to then move it into latex. And we chose latex because of its properties, because it's antibacterial, antifungal, anti-dust mite, it's temperature neutral, and it's got a long life too. And it's made from the rubber trees, as opposed to memory foam, which is made from petroleum.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
So we wanted a natural product. And when I got in touch with the manufacturer, I thought I could just send them the drawings and they could whip me up a mold and, hey, we'd have our pillows. But no, I had to then set about trying to cut latex and build it into a shape that could be molded. And I learned that I could only do that with a scalpel. And so I handmade about 60 of these, and my trialists would have a go at it and let me know. So there were wedges in it and all sorts of things in it to try and make it the right shape. So eventually then we went and got the mold made. So the pillow is about, we call it a pillow because, we call it a sleep positioner, but in pillow is short for it, if you like. So it looks nothing like your normal pillow. And some people get a bit of a surprise when they see it because it's a slightly different shape, but then your normal pillow doesn't solve snoring. So it obviously has to be a particular shape and design. If I said to you to stand up straight, you find your chest comes up and out a little bit when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Yep.
And so there's a shoulder pad attached to it. And so the shoulder pad lifts your chest so that you can breathe right through your nasal cavity, right down into your lungs. So it's opening up your airways, like you do when you stand up straight. And then the main body of the pillow has a magic spot on it, if you like, called the sweet spot. And by positioning yourself there and with the shoulder pad, then we can control the snoring. So it's
opening up that whole airway. So because when we're snoring, you know, we have a normal pillow and we're snoring, what's actually going on there? Are we tipping our chin forward onto the chest and blocking off this airways? I mean, there's probably a number of reasons. People who are overweight or have a big circumference of their neck, bodybuilders and so on, they have a lot of pressure going on to the airway just from the size of their necks. So is there, you know, is this really just, it's repositioning that whole airway so that it's opened up? That's the whole premise behind it.
Yes, it is. So it's about good sleep posture and about opening up your airway, and it's for both back and side sleepers. And sort of half tummy sleep on it, but it's not for pure tummy sleepers. And so the shape of the pillow supports the jaw when you're sleeping on your side and on your back, and of course keeping yourself in that nice position so that you can't easily drop your head down. The whole thing is to prevent that head from dropping down and cutting off your airway. And getting, like people who wake themselves up in the night, they sometimes hear themselves snore, but they've actually stopped breathing, and that's hearing themselves actually gasping for a breath.
Wow. So they've actually been woken up. And so when, you know, on the podcasts that I've done around sleep and breathing, when we sleep, we need to get into this deep sleep phase, which as we get older gets more and more difficult. We have, you know, non-REM sleep and REM sleep, and we have different levels where we're in a deep sleep where we're actually paralyzed and unable to move, and our body does that in order to, we have all these dreams, otherwise we'd be living them out. But when we're in this really deep unconscious state, we're completely unaware of the position of our body and what we're actually doing and what's actually happening with our circulation and our breathing. And so what often happens is people get woken up by their own lack of breathing, and they've been constantly pulled out of getting into that deep sleep phase, which is just absolutely crucial if you want to avoid neurodegeneration. You need that deep sleep. So when you're being pulled out and you're only getting into a shallow state of sleep and then being pulled out again as you have to gasp for air and wake yourself up, you know, the body is waking yourself up so you don't bloody suffocate, you know, basically. And it does that very well, but it is stopping you getting that really restorative, important deep sleep happening, which is really going to have effects on things like your emotional state, your ability to deal with stresses, your ability to function properly, basically, during the day. And as time goes on, then it can affect your memory, and then it can affect, you know, the whole neurodegeneration side of things, where you're not cleaning out the tau proteins that they talk about in relation to Alzheimer's. And we're doing this something called glymphatic cleaning at night. And, you know, I'm not an expert on sleep. I'm going to get Dr. Matthew Walker, I hope, on, who can explain this way better than me. But there is this brain washing effect that's going on when we're in certain levels of sleep, and it's the glymphatic system. And if we're not getting that really deep, you know, continuous sleep, we're not getting that. And so we're not cleaning out these damaged proteins, if you like, and they start to accumulate in the brain, and these can lead then to neurodegenerative diseases. And I've probably butchered that from a science perspective. So, but you get the whole point. If you're not sleeping well and getting good quality sleep, you're really going to age quicker. You're really going to damage your cognitive abilities, your memory, and, you know, neurodegeneration is, you know, a likely chance of that happening further on down the road, as you experience with your dear mum. So this was really crucial for you because you didn't want to go down that same path, having seen your mum go down there.
No, absolutely not. But it's also a relationship issue too. You know, you've got the clinical issues with habitual snoring and sleep apnea, but you've got relationship issues too, that there's more than one person involved with this. There's generally two people involved with it.
I was a sufferer.
Always the sufferer.
Husband snoring.
In my case,
Not
it was my
anymore.
husband. Yeah. And so it's really important to try and resolve this for your partner's sake, because while you're not sleeping well, and you will find that you'll be tired in the daytime, really tired sort of mid-afternoon, falling asleep at night, before bedtime, if you like, and also just that general well-being, that fuzziness in the head and such like. But your partner is also suffering from sleep deprivation. They're the ones that are being woken on a regular basis while you supposedly sleep through. And, there's that look in the morning that says, you snored
I want a
last night
divorce.
and I'm really grumpy. And it's generally the partner that has to go to the spare room because they're the one that's being disturbed. So they're having to go and get into a cold bed somewhere else in the house. Or people don't necessarily have a spare bedroom and they're sleeping on a couch, to try and just actually get some sleep. So it's a social problem within your own home. Yep. And it creates arguments. It
definitely does.
Very disturbing, and you've got two people feeling very tired during the day. So it is important to get both parties to get a good night's sleep. And so now and again, you may snore a little, but just turn over and reposition yourself on the pillow, and you're satisfied again. And so we have an 86% success rate, which we're really proud of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've sold thousands of these now, so we know our statistics are right because we give a 30-night money-back guarantee if somebody's not happy. So we know for a fact that we have this 86% success rate. But also, we didn't go into this blindly either and just hit the market with a sleep positioner. We put it through the Otago University, the Well Sleep Centre at Bowen Hospital in Wellington, and a wonderful lady, Dr. Angela Campbell, who was in charge of that study. And it came out really, really well there too. In fact, we wouldn't have commercialised it if we didn't and put all this resource into it if we didn't believe in our product.
Wow.
But we knew we had a product that was going to solve a problem. And that problem was habitual snoring and mild to medium sleep apnea.
Yeah.
We don't advertise it as a product that's going to solve serious sleep apnea because those people do have a serious condition.
And that can be a neurological thing. So in the case of, like with mum, it's actually a brain switching off in the wrong times in the night.
Yeah.
So we can't affect that. However, like even in a situation like with mum, I get up at 4 a.m. to check on her, and often she's taken the mask off because she's had enough of it. And her argument to me is, well, I'm not sleeping properly, like I'm not in a deep sleep at that hour, so it's okay. And I'm like, Mum, when you're asleep, you have no idea what level of sleep you're in. And why would you think that in the early morning you are not going to have sleep apnea, whereas at midnight you are? This will be an extra backup system for me.
Yes,
yeah,
we do. We have people that buy the pillow because they know that they, whip off this CPAP machine during the night. And so some people sleep with the CPAP machine and the Patney. And so when they whip that CPAP off, then they still have some protection for the rest of it.
Because neither, even the CPAP machine isn't 100% coverage, like it's blowing air down into your lungs, which, has its own certain amount of problems. You can't nasal breathe really when you've got a sleep apnea machine, or at least mum can't. And it's, dries your mouth out, and it does all these, it's not very nice having this. You can't turn over very easily, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a little bit difficult having one of these. But in combination, and this is a perfect, situation to be able to have it as a backup. If she does take it off, then at least hopefully her chest is more open. Hopefully she'll breathe better, if not 100% perfect.
I mean, we talked before about big people being the snorers.
Yep.
That's a bit of a fallacy.
Yep.
I believe that too. But no, I'm 58 kgs.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big person, and probably 25% to 30% of the sales that I make to women are in that size bracket.
Yeah.
And so our problem is narrow airways.
Yes.
But then if I look at the male, my male customers, majority of them would be, 5'9" up to 6 foot.
Yeah.
And be in that 80 to 100 kg bracket. So they're not huge. They're not huge men, and they're not overweight. The big fellas, I don't see that much of.
Really? Yeah.
But, and also, if you're looking at females in particular, 42% of my customers are female, and 58% male. So that's quite a big number for females.
Yeah.
But also, after menopause, about 60% of women snore,
Yes,
which
this is
most
to do with
people
your
probably
estrogen
don't
drops.
realise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So something else to look forward to, ladies.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of it. Thanks very much. It's awesome fun, this menopausal thing. So when your estrogen levels drop and there's a big correlation between menopause and then worsening cardiovascular outcomes and so on. I wonder if part of that is to do with the sleep issues, that come along with that, or whether it's because of the drop in the estrogen, which is protective for the heart. It's probably a combination of many things. But as your health starts to deteriorate because you're not getting good sleep, then you get, things like when you're not sleeping well, like shift workers, for example, I've been dealing with this issue with my husband as well, who's doing shift work. Shift workers die earlier. That's pretty much a given. They are more prone to diabetes and cardiovascular and metabolic disorders and neurodegenerative disorders if they're doing shift work where they have to be awake at night. They tend to be more overweight. They have problems with their appetite regulation, their hormone situations. All of these things are affected by sleep. So, okay, that's for shift workers, and we need our shift workers because they keep the country going when we need them to be. But they need extra help. And then we need to realize that, okay, so that's what's happening if you have to stay up all night and your circadian rhythms are all out of whack, and the rest of us get to sleep normal sort of hours. But if we're not sleeping well, again, this is going to have all of those knock-on effects. And this is why I think this episode is really important. I don't usually, do an episode with something on a particular product, but I think that this is a product that I have found that is actually going to help change people's lives, and therefore it's really worth doing a whole episode on this, because it's something that's easy to try out and see whether it works for you and see if it improves your thing, because at the basis of all health is sleep. Before, as a health coach, as a running coach, before I deal with what exercise I'm going to get you to do, or what nutrition I'm going to get you to eat, or what times of the day and all of that sort of thing, I have to look at your sleep first. Your sleep is at the basis. Without good sleep, all of those things, you can be eating perfect, you can be exercising perfect, but if your sleep's out, you're not going to get the optimum out of your body. So I think that this is actually at the base. This is the thing we need to sort out first, is your sleep. And a part of that is making sure that you're not snoring. And so I think trying the Patney Pillow is a really good thing to have a go at if you are dealing with this. And I haven't seen this type of product anywhere else in the world. I haven't searched the world. I'm sure there's somebody else maybe in the world who's come up with something similar, but is this pretty unique?
Yeah, it is. We've actually patented it in several countries, in the major countries, because it is quite unique. I suppose the other thing I should tell your listeners about, or your viewers about, is that it's actually individualized.
Right.
So as far as we know, we're one of only 3 commercialized, individualized pillows in the world.
Wow.
And so the pillow is unique to the user. And so we have an algorithm, and we're developing that further and further all the time to determine what weight and size, well, the size doesn't change, but what weight the pillow is and the density of it. So we compression test them. We know exactly what height it is, and so we measure that to the customer. So we ask customers some basic questions like, do they have a broad, very broad, average, narrow shoulder, and a couple of other questions like that. They don't need to measure themselves. all they have to do is compare themselves to their peers who are roughly their height and weight. So we've been able to do that, and that is incredibly unique. So our biggest customers being 2 meters tall and 170 kgs.
Wow.
So a fairly big boy, but we can cater for bigger still, and for everybody underneath that. Our smallest lady about 4'6" and about 45 kgs. So from the tiniest little lady who did snore, and through to the biggest fellows. So we can cope with any body shape. And in particular, we get a lot of tradies, farmers, sports people in particular, who have built up a lot of muscle over time around their necks or shoulders.
Bodybuilders have issues with this.
So we can deal with that though too. Yeah. So it's quite a unique product.
Now, I want to dive into a little bit the story of the day, because this was a very cute story. It's called the Patney Pillow. And when I first talked to you, I thought your name was Patney, your surname. But that's not quite right, is it? Tell us a little bit the story behind this.
No, my surname's Anderson, so a very Scottish surname. Patney is a made-up name. Because my mum was a major snorer, and I inherited it from her. We were trying to think of what we would call the pillow. And so one day, one of my my mum's grandsons walked into the house. Her name was Pat. And he called, "How are you going, Patney Knickers?" And she growled at him for calling her that. But the Patney stuck, and the grandkids used to call her Patney. And so we thought, well, what better name for the company and the product? We'll call it Patney. So
what a lovely tribute to your mum. And it's a cute name. So the Patney Pillow, and it sort of sticks. It's it rolls off the tongue quite nicely.
It does.
Yeah. And like, if this is the thing, like, you lost your mum to dementia. You were fearful that was the track that you were going to be going on, and therefore you came up. And this is what I love, the number 8 wire mentality of you, like, okay, I've got a problem. No one else can fix this for me. I've had surgery. I've tried every other damn thing there is around. I'm going to fix it myself.
Exactly.
Are you very much like that? Is that your approach to life?
Oh, well, I get on with things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it had to be non-invasive. That was the other thing that was really important to me, because I had tried a lot of invasive products like the surgery. Yep. And found that didn't work. And so for me, it was really important that it was non-invasive. It was interesting. We did a survey before we commercialized and asked people what was the most important thing about a product that could stop snoring. And the partners said stop snoring. That was the most important thing, that they would stop snoring. We had a list, and then it was comfort and such like. The snorers said, well, comfort is the most important thing. For the partner, they didn't give a toss about comfort. They just wanted that it worked. That was the most important thing. And if it's a torture chamber, well, I don't care, Yeah. It's non-invasive. It's very comfortable. And it had to be both for me. That was for sure, yeah.
Yeah. And I sent you a photo of my husband using his one. And, he's loving it. He stopped snoring, and that's, improved my sleep no end, and improved the marriage, because I'm not hitting him in the middle of the night, waking him up because he's snoring like a trooper. And I'm worried, like your husband, like when he would be snoring and he would stop breathing, and that would terrify me, because I'm like, are you going to take a breath? Are you going to take a breath? And then you're like this all the night, worried that they're not going to breathe. So I think it's just fantastic. I don't have to worry about that now. Now he just does the occasional sort of, and then, when he's turning over, and that's about it. And then he goes back, and he's good. And he's very much like, because you can imagine in my household, I am the biohacking queen, right? I've got every gadget known to man, and I come home with all of these things for him to try, and he's like, oh God, like, here we go again. Another thing that I'm going to have to add to my daily routine and regime of what Lisa's telling me I've got to do, whether it's from hyperbaric to ozone to, shaking machines and saunas and all sorts of infrared light things that you stick up your nose, and he's always like my guinea pig, but he's taken to this like a duck to water. So I was stoked because I did think he might go, nah, not doing that, because, you know, very much he does that on occasion, and I'm not doing it, you know. I tried to get him to do the mouth taping thing. No, it wasn't having a bar of that. But this is at least, you know, something that he's actually adopted. So sorry, poor husband, he's not here to speak.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story when I had trialists when I was back in the prototype stage. And so I'd given out these prototypes to the testers, and I popped back about 4 days later to one of them to see how he was going. And he wasn't there, but his wife was there, and she said, I had a terrible night's sleep the first night. I said, what, didn't it work? She said, no, I've listened to him snore for 20 years and I thought he was dead. So I kept checking to see whether he's still alive or not.
What's happened? He's not doing it. And that sound, because you can get actually quite used to that sound a little bit. It becomes quite comforting in a weird, strange way. It's a bit like that white noise apps that you have. You know, you turn on the white noise to help you sleep. Sometimes it can be like a little bit like that. But yeah, I think you get used to that pretty quite quickly if they're not snoring. So Francis, you know, where to from here for your company? So we're going to share the links and so on in the show notes. But can you tell everybody where can they find out, where can they reach you? There is a 30-day money back guarantee on this sleep positioner. If people want to try it out, where can they find you?
They can find me at patney.com. That's patney.com. And there's a wealth of information on our website about how to use it. There's a whole lot of testimonials, there's blogs, and there's the story there too. But obviously we will be offering some special through Lisa as well too.
Yes, we're going to have a discount code, and we will organise that afterwards, and I'll put that in the show notes too, guys. So if you want to try this out, you know, if you're dealing with snoring, if you're dealing with someone who is snoring, you know, try it out. It's risk-free. You know, give it a go. It might change your life.
Yeah, I think the other important thing too is you don't have to snore to use it.
That's a good point.
Absolutely not. And we get a lot of people who their partner has one, and they've come back to us for one for themselves, simply because it just opens up your airways, gives you good sleep posture, and breathe easily through the night. And so a lot of people buy it because for more about wellness, as opposed to just snoring. So it is a wellness product, absolutely, as well as while it was developed for snoring, you don't have to be a snorer to use it.
A question, and this may be outside the remit of it, but would it help with people with asthma? Because when I was a severe asthmatic, especially as a child, I used to sleep like half up because it would be less pressure on the lungs. Have you had any experience in that realm with asthma at all?
We've had people with different medical ailments, if you like reflux and asthma and things like that. But we haven't done a study on that to say, you know, ultimately, yes, it does. We get a lot of anecdotal evidence of it. But also people, when they've got a really bad cold or flu, they find it helps open up their airways as well too during those times.
So it would be logical.
I can't say, you know, from a medical perspective that it's going to help, but because, you know, it does put you in that very good sleep position and it does maintain an open airway, it may well help with that. And like I said, we have anecdotal evidence.
And I think, you know, like when you're trying out new things, especially when it's, you know, something like a pillow, it takes a little bit of getting used to, isn't it? You need a couple of nights to sort of, I know with Hazley, he, you know, the first night he was like, not sure. And then after that, after a couple of nights, he got used to it. And it's the same with Mum's CPAP machine, you know, like I've tried to change the mask that she wears so that it's less invasive, but she actually just wants to go back to the thing that she knows, you know, so it is very much a habit forming thing. And once you push through that initial sort of pushback that you get when you try anything new, you know, that can help. So why do you think, I mean, I think like an 86% success rate is huge. And the other 14% would just be people who aren't willing to push through that little difficult phase, or just don't, you know, aren't willing to try it. I bet you get a lot of partners buying them and then the person won't even try it out.
Yeah, the odd one. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons why, you know, that 14%. If I said it was 100%, nobody would believe me anyway.
Yeah.
You know, nothing is 100%. So
No.
we believe, you know, 86 is pretty good. Some people have quite complex health issues.
Yeah.
And there's more going on than just their snoring. Some people they just can't get used to it. And you know, some of perhaps the older folks, you know, find that a little bit. But majority of people, it's fine. And we can't solve everybody's problems. Sometimes it just plain doesn't solve the snoring problem, but they get their money back. And so there's no loss. We've tried it, and for some reason it doesn't work. There's some people who I believe have got, you know, serious sleep apnea. And I advise them to go to a sleep clinic to actually get what's causing their problem, their snoring, to be actually diagnosed and sorted. So,
yeah, especially if it's a neurological.
Yes, absolutely.
There's obstructive sleep apnea, and then there's neurological reasons for it, like mum's, like where the brain's been actually damaged, the brainstem's damaged, and we can't fix that. And I've, you know, I just had mum at the sleep clinic last week, assessing her data, because they record her data every week, and unfortunately, you know, she hasn't improved. Everything else in her brain sort of come right, but that aspect hasn't. So she can't ever get off that machine. We need it for life, and thank goodness we have access to that. So there is things, but she could still benefit from this pillow, especially when she takes it off in the middle of the night. So I think, you know, all of these aspects, I would really encourage people to go and listen to the episodes with Patrick McEwen and James Nestor to understand more the whole why our jaws even have developed differently than our ancestors, the different reasons for that, the foods, the breathing, the nasal breathing, all of those aspects are also very crucial, important pieces of this particular puzzle. And I also did a episode on sleep apnea with Jez Morris, who used to own all the Eden clinics throughout New Zealand and was very instrumental with us and with mum's situation. So those are, if you're interested in this topic, make sure you go and check out those episodes as well, and try out the Patney Pillow. Just go and order one, find out, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, send it back.
Well, you talk to us first.
Yes, find out. Find out. Ask Francis all about it. See if it's going to be for you. Try it out, and then we'll see how we go, and give us some feedback.
Well, the other thing is too that if somebody does have a question, we're only far away as the telephone, and we've got lots of tips and tricks anyway to help, because of course we don't know what your bedroom environment is like. We don't know how old your mattress is, things like that. So, but we can overcome those problems as well. Yeah,
brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Francis, for being somebody who thinks outside the box and. You know, done number 8 wire mentality of I've got a problem, I'm going to fix it, and now I'm going to fix it for everybody else, because that's exactly how I am too, and that's how I've come to do what I do. Had a problem, fixed it. Okay, now I can help other people with it. So thank you very much for your time today,
Francis. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.